So, me and my family live abroad, and we went back to Azad Kashmir, Pakistan, after 4 years for our summer vacation. All our relatives live there, so we were very excited and looking forward to the vacation. My family and the rest of my dad's side, we all live in our grandma's house. It's a huge family. We live in a 4-story bungalow. All the family has occupied the ground floor. And the first floor, the upper stories are under construction, so no one stays there yet. We often go to the terrace at night to look at stars and have a small chit-chat. P.S. A long time ago, when my mom got married into this house, my grandma told my mom that there's a presence in this house which does no harm to anyone, and it has been here since it was built in the 70s. Sometimes, while everybody was asleep, me, my siblings and cousins used to sit late night and play games and talk about a lot of stuff. We used to sleep late around 2 a.m. One night we were all sitting and having fun and talking, but that night my uncle told us to go to the room early and sleep, as they could hear us talk and laugh, and they couldn't sleep. It was around 11 p.m. at night. We all just went to our rooms to sleep. Now I remember I was the last one to go to my room, and everybody else was asleep. I used to sleep with my mom and siblings in this huge room on the first story. So, after my cousins went to sleep, I came up and locked our door and went to bed. I was tossing and turning a lot for an hour or two. There are stairs attached to my room's wall for the second story, and suddenly, I heard someone who was apparently wearing anklets coming down the stairs. As I mentioned, I was the last person to come to my room. Then who was this? The sound stopped for a few minutes, and now that person was walking beside my room. I was the last person to come back to my room. Then who was this? That person started walking near my bed, and now I could clearly hear the sound of the anklet. It stopped literally near my ear. I could feel the presence standing above me. The presence started walking again, but this time it just went inside this wall behind my bed. There was no window and no door, just a wall. The sound of the anklet faded. I was shivering, trembling so much that I dare not open my eyes for even a second to see who it was. I kept reading the Quran, and I didn't realize it when I fell asleep. Next day when I woke up, I instantly told my mom about this incident, and she just took me to my grandma right away. My grandma told me not to talk about this a lot, and that we all should be aware of the presence of a woman that has been residing in this bungalow since the beginning. She's a wanderer, no harm to anyone. I was scared to death. That night, all my uncles and aunties started sharing their experiences with the women in this house. It was a crazy night, and now I'm traumatized by the sounds of anklets. I wear soundless anklets. This account dates back to maybe 2015. I was probably in 4th standard back then. I lived with my family, my parents, and my younger brother in the government bungalows. There were actually a lot of stories circulating about these bungalows where we lived, because obviously they were pretty huge. And there was this long wall separating the government residential area from a big tea garden. Also, there was another rumor about the bungalows being built over a graveyard. Initially, we had 4 maids, 1 gardener, and 1 cook to take care of our needs, and I was really close to this one maid, Bobita. It was nighttime and summer season, so consequently, the ACs were on in all the rooms. My parents, along with my brother, were watching some sort of movie together, while I sat with one of the maids in our backyard, talking about a new song that had recently been released. Suddenly, the maid was called inside by my mom, and I sat there singing a tune to myself. You see, this place where I was sitting was closed, like it was a sort of veranda closed by grills. Basically, you could open the grill and follow a cemented path to be led straight into the vegetable garden. I was pretty engrossed in singing the song when I noticed a figure in a white nightgown passing right in front of me. At that time, I wasn't sacred of ghosts. I mean, that thought didn't even occur to me that that figure could be a ghost. The figure was walking down the cement path that led to the vegetable garden, and I could see her back. She had long black hair, and as I mentioned before, she was wearing a long white nightgown. I obviously thought that it was Bobita going into the garden to take some beans, like she usually did, since the servant quarters were kind of nearby. So naturally, I called out to her twice, but she didn't respond and kept walking. I called a third time, and this time, she stopped but didn't turn around, and after a few secs, started walking again until she disappeared round the corner. As if on impulse, I ran to my mom, who was still talking with the maid, and requested her to call Bobita. My mom was of course surprised and confused to hear my sudden request. The maid who was talking with my mom started laughing and went like, "Bobita? She went to her mother's place, was homesick, the poor girl. She'll come back after 2 weeks." Spooked beyond words would be an understatement to how I felt at that moment. It's been years now, and until this day, I can't point my finger on exactly what I saw that night. There have been unexplained events in my life that I consider to be paranormal. I cannot find a logical or natural explanation for these encounters. I would say the event happened when I was 8. I remember my father asking my sister and me to sit down. He had some bad news to share with us. I knew immediately my grandmother, a truly remarkable woman, had passed away. She had endured a long and painful battle with cancer, and though I did not see her in her last days, I knew somehow her fight had ended in her untimely death before my father could find the words. My grandmother sent many messages from beyond to the people she loved. 3 knocks on the door to tell her brother goodbye, a gift of flowers to her daughter that bloomed for the first and last time, appearing in dreams to say, "Everything is all right," and the list goes on. To my knowledge, I am the only person she appeared to as an apparition. It was several months after her passing, and I had an extremely difficult time dealing with her loss. It was the first time I had ever lost a close loved one. I could not bear the thought of sleeping alone at night. I slept in my sister's room, and remember waking to see my grandmother in the window dressed in the gown she was buried in. She said nothing, and her face showed no expression. I was not frightened. I felt comforted by her presence. I fumbled with the covers in an attempt to wake my sister, but within a matter of seconds, I became overwhelmed with grief. Tears began to fill my eyes, and she slowly faded away. Then there were a series of events in and about the old 3-story brick house that had been passed down our family for generations, the last owners being my grandparents. For one, I never felt welcomed in that home, nor did other members of the family, even though we had no real reason to feel threatened. I loved my grandparents dearly, but the very thought of being left in that creepy house alone, even for a moment, downright scared me. I still get chills when I drive by. I always got the sense that someone there was, and is, watching me. I never saw anything. However, there were some mysterious happenings. For another, this fear of the house gradually began to manifest as a terrifying reoccurring dream.